25 years of independent and fearless journalism. Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Remember, we're on DSTV 421, Go TV 144, and on YouTube we're streaming live. Our digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. We are in dangerous times. That's your health minister with a strong warning as Ghana records its 16th case of coronavirus. These people have been in contact with at least 600 people. You'll hear from the sector minister who says efforts are being made to trace about 400 people more who have been in contact with them. And it gets more worrying as 4 of the latest coronavirus cases are community transmissions, what health experts feared the most. And also coming up, in spite of all of these, the National Identification Authority is adamant as it masses up people for registration for the Ghana card, despite warnings from health experts and the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, also despite a suit filed against the NIA. Join us with your thoughts and comment on 0504 109 009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Details of those stories and more, as you're well aware of, you may be aware of by now, Ghana's coronavirus cases has risen to 16, and all of the 5 newly reported cases were in the Greater Accra region. Now, whilst 2 were imported cases, 3 of the patients had no history of travel. What we know is that experts are warning a community infection will have consequences for the nation. There's also evidence of a possible community spread of the virus. My colleague Fred Smith will join us with the details, but this afternoon will still remain very heavily on coronavirus. We will bring you an interview we had with the health minister who says we are in dangerous times and is warning all of us to take the necessary precautions. Now, news just in this afternoon is from the West African Examination Council. If you recall, President Akufo-Addo indicated that schools should shut down. But the BEC student and the senior high school students who are in their final years were supposed to stay back at home at school to study towards the West African Examination Council and the BECE. This afternoon, we're getting correspondence from the West African Examination Council that says suspending the WASSCE 2020. It says suspension of WASSCE 2020 timetable. And I read for you details of that statement that I have with me here right now. It says our memorandum referenced, and it gives you the reference number dated March the 19th, 2020. On the above mentioned refers the negative impact of the novel and deadly COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent protocols put in place by government of member countries to prevent the spread of the disease have serious implications for the conduct of WASSCE for school candidate 2020 as agreed by the national offices. Please note that the proposal from the Secretariat on the need to reschedule WASSCE 2020 was approved by the chairman of the council. Consequently, the registrar hereby directs that 1. The WASSCE 2020 timetable be suspended until further notice. 2. The conduct of WASSCE 2020 be put on hold until further notice. And 3. Directives 1 and 2 will be reviewed when the health situation improves. Essentially, this is an indefinite suspension. It's an indefinite suspension of the WASSCE timetable. It says kindly note the information for further action and communicates the directives to the Ministry of Education and the general public in your country. Now, this is coming from the West African Examination Council inter-office memorandum. It is signed by E.K. Myers. He's acting head of IED for the registrar. So that's the latest information coming in to us right now. And like I indicated to you, 16 is the number right now. 16 is the number. We were at 11 yesterday. In fact, we started yesterday with 9. Already we thought that we had 7 until President Akufo-Addo spoke and indicated that there were 9 cases. By afternoon, we had risen to 11. Well, less than 24 hours on, we are at 16. The cases have jumped to that number. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, joins me in the studio with more. Fred, 16 cases. What more do we know?
Indeed, 3 of that 16 were local infections. The other 2 were imported. I'll give you details of the 3.
Right.
The first one is a 29-year-old Ghanaian, a lady resident of Accra. There's no history of travel, and she showed signs. Samples were taken, and that confirmed coronavirus positive. The second is a 34-year-old Ghanaian lady, also resident of Accra. The contact of a confirmed case was established, and this was at work, according to the Ghana Health Service. Samples were taken, and that confirmed that she is coronavirus positive. The third person is a 53-year-old Ghanaian. This is a male resident of Tema, and there's no history of travel and no evidence of close contact with confirmed case. The sample confirmed positive in the laboratory result, and this case of the 53-year-old is very worrying because there's no indication that he's come in contact with anybody who is infected, and so possibly someone carrying this and not knowing that they are carrying it and still spreading it around. The other 2 are imported.
And just, Fred, before we go to the other 2, just so if my memory serves me right, this was what happened. A similar thing happened in the United States of America when they recorded a case of someone who had no travel record, who had no contact with anybody who had traveled, and since then it has escalated. Right. Yes. And today we're hearing that Carolina is shutting off. But let's go on with the 2 imported cases.
Well, the 41-year-old Ghanaian male, he arrived in Ghana on KLM on the 15th of March, about five days ago, and that indicated exposure with family members in Amsterdam exhibiting respiratory symptoms. And also on the flight, there were some passengers sneezing and coughing, and so samples were taken, and this also confirmed that he had contracted coronavirus. And the final one is a 36-year-old Ghanaian male, resident of Paris, France, and arrived in the country on a date that has not been confirmed, and there was no evidence of contact with an infected person, and this also tested positive for coronavirus. 16 in all, no deaths, and everybody is under treatment, and we understand that they are all stable.
All right. Well, Fred, this afternoon we're hearing some news also from the health ministry. We've had the health minister himself speak about what's going to happen or what to expect.
The possibility of a spread because of these cases we've had. And if you recall, there's another one in Kumasi where we were told there's no travel history, possibly another local infection, which we've not been briefed on yet.
Right.
So
and community transmissions is one of the things that the health experts feared the most.
Indeed, because the spread is faster, and so you get to hear today 16, tomorrow you could hear a huge jump in that figure, and then another huge jump, and that's how we saw China had its cases grow. We also saw Italy had its cases grow, and now in other parts of Europe and in America. And so this is very difficult times for us. We were told by the information minister, the experts have advised government that the next 2 weeks is going to be crucial because we've already recorded cases, and those people may have been in contact with others. Already, the contact tracing has gone very wide, and they are counting in excess of 600 people that they are tracing. No one knows who those 600 would have also been in contact with. That would have been a much larger number. And so, I mean, it brings to bear what everybody individually can do to ensure that we bring this under control.
And talking about the 600 number, the 600 people that are expected to have come in contact with these 16, the ministry is actually saying that they anticipated about 8,000. So we're looking at their expectation to reach about 400 more who may have come into contact with them. We'll hear from the minister shortly, but that's after Fred gives us an idea what the global picture is today.
Well, still, the virus is still spreading around the world. Yesterday, around this time, we had about 220,000 cases. As we speak, we have 240,000 cases, about 20,000 more adding to the numbers, and we're having about 10,000 deaths so far. More than 86,000 have recovered.
244,000.
Indeed, yes, 244,000,
Yeah.
and we are having about 86,000 who have recovered. That's encouraging news for us. If we're able to get all of these people who are contracting it to recover, then we'll be heading somewhere. In Italy, they've recorded 41,000, and that's the biggest worry for health experts.
Yeah.
They've recorded 41,000 cases, about half what China has so far recorded, but the deaths are so much. They've recorded over 3,400 deaths, and that's far more than what's about 200 more than China, with all the figures have recorded in terms of deaths. In Germany, Iran, and Spain, we've seen a spike in the cases as well. 15,000 in each of these countries. Cases in the US have also increased, and it's gone past 13,000, while the number of deaths have hit 200 in the United States. Now, the state of California, we understand it's on a total lockdown.
Right, so that's it about the global highlights. So before we wrap up the show, you see the Johns Hopkins University's updated platform there. We'll take you through it. We'll look at, as we do usually, we'll look at the countries, and then we'll look at the records over the period. But I wanted to, you have something more for us, Craig?
Yes, indeed. We're getting news that 8 of the 16 who have contracted these in Ghana have recovered.
Is this confirmed?
No official confirmation of this yet, but we've seen some websites announcing this. It will be interesting to see how the Johns Hopkins website also captures that, because they take their reporting directly from the WHO, and that makes it one of the most credible sites to visit. And so, I mean, if we can get...
We can go ahead and listen to the minister, the health minister, and then when we come back, we'll look through the figures, we'll look through the countries and find out what they've reported about Ghana. Perhaps at that time they would have updated it if they haven't done so. But the health minister is saying that the country is in dangerous times, as the officials trace 600 more people who have come into contact with the people, like Fred said. He's also saying that there could be more. Well, he said this when the Ghana Commercial Bank donated 100,000 Ghana cedis to the ministry.
Unfortunately, we got to test them positive after they have actually integrated with us, so moved into our communities. Some of them might have interacted with family members, friends, co-workers, and all that. We have a number of over 600 people from interviews with them, those who have been tested positive. We keep on asking them who they had contacted, and I believe they might not even be able to give us the entire spectrum of people they might have met before we detected them to be positive. But for now, we seem to have got close to about 600 people that we are trying to trace, to check on them whether they have already contracted the disease. And I know the number will be more. So over the next few days and weeks, we are anticipating that we're going to have larger numbers of people who are already having the disease. The only thing that I can say now is the fact that we should all be listening to the guidelines and advice that is coming from our professionals and those who are flying our materials and all the radio stations and television stations and people who are discussing COVID-19. Over the last 3 days, almost every day, we get a case. So going forward, we may begin to grow positives exponentially. And that is becoming a very dangerous situation for all of us. Our health system is still very fragile. Even those that have better systems, like China and the US, it's a calamity now. So we may not have a very large number of places that we should treat people. So that is not the area we should misbehave and get into, because it will be disastrous for us. Please, this is not the time when you are passing in front of somebody's door, you say, oh, let me go and say hello to you. Please, no. those of us in offices, tell those who come to visit us that they should not come again. Because we wouldn't know who you had contacted over the last few days, so don't get closer to anybody. So what you're going to do, if it is not very, very, very critical, please suspend it for some time. A number of airlines have suspended their flights. Some from yesterday, they won't come back. Some from tomorrow, they won't come back. We are still discussing as to what we should do. And I believe when the law is passed, the president will get the necessary power to be able to actually exercise that legal right to stop certain things that we are doing in the country. But some of us are still not listening, and it looks like we are joking with it. Now that we have 11.
Now that we have 11, at the time he said it was 11, after he spoke it had quickly jumped to 16. He also gave an update on those who have tested positive and says they are responding to treatment.
As at yesterday, they were all very stable. Some of them, I would say, are even recovering. There are 2 of them we're treating at home. You don't see any signs of them again. But we may need to do some other tests before we discharge them fully. But so far, we don't have anybody who is critically ill or severely ill. Illness is mild, but you see some of them, and it's like they are becoming very normal people.
How far have we gone with the contact tracing?
Contact tracing so far, we've done close to about 450 people, but we are still tracing. Anytime we test a positive, we begin to track, and we are adding on to the numbers. We, as at 2 days back, we had mapped up close to about 600, but we don't end there. We do some extrapolations, and we're thinking that we're looking for potential about 1,000 people. So as the numbers grow, we add on to those that we are contacting. It is working somewhat, but we might not be very, very efficient in that respect. People are also coming voluntarily, to try to give us their, contacts that they did. And I believe we are getting close to something.
We also want to find out from you, how are we keeping track of 600 people that we've already traced?
Those that we trace, we check on them. We ask questions. How long have you been in contact? So when we do the preliminary screening and the person is not showing any, signs of infection, we take him for a normal person. And it's like we don't continue to do nothing with them, but to keep on, because we have their numbers, we keep on calling and finding out their conditions and things like that.
You said we are anticipating more cases. How well prepared are we?
I don't want to be overconfident to tell you that we are well prepared. We are prepared somewhat to take challenges. But when you begin to get massive upsurge, you realize that your preparedness is nothing to write home about. Yes, that is happening in Italy, it's happening in America, it's happening in UK. So I will not use the word well, but we are prepared. These are some of the things.
Well, the script has changed rather rapidly when the health ministry and other health experts told us that we were well prepared for the worst. Certainly, we're seeing the examples from other countries. He says we can't be overconfident to say we are prepared. We could be prepared, but we could easily be overwhelmed. But it is your responsibility to protect yourself and protect other people around you by doing the things that you ought to do. Wash your hand, cover your nose, cover your mouth when you cough. Well, as we suspect that community spread of the virus is beginning in Ghana, the National Identification Authority appears defiant, going ahead with the Ghana card registration in the eastern region. This is despite the presidential directive, first of all, against social gatherings in the country. And it's also against the fact that there has been a suit against the NIA. It's against the fact that health experts have warned the NIA to stop the registration. It's against the fact that the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice said they must stop. There's more in this report.
On March 15th, Ghana's COVID-19 case count rose to 6. Information Minister Kojo Ponkroma announced some measures to check the spread. 9 hours later, in the night, President Akufo-Addo announced more stringent social distancing protocols.
All public gatherings, including conferences, workshops, funerals, festivals, political rallies, sporting events, and religious events such as services in churches and mosques have been suspended for the next 4 weeks. Private burials are permitted, but with limited numbers, not exceeding 25 in attendance.
Many institutions have since shut down. Schools, public and private, at all levels, from basic to tertiary, shut down. Despite a lack of legislation enforcing the presidential directive, the police in the Ashanti region were the first to crack the whip. They relied on an already existing legislation to arrest and charge a pastor for organizing a service. It was an unlawful assembly, the police said.
We are going to ask our patrolmen to go out there. Whichever church is found holding services or any other meetings will be made to face the full rigors of the law.
Although churches and mosques were to shut, nightclubs and pubs were only urged to operate with caution. But even these ones have begun shutting down, all in the interest of society. But the National Identification Authority is undertaking registration in the Eastern region. It appears it may not have heard this directive, or is simply refusing to obey. Questions were asked, and this response was provided.
All supervising registration officers, SROs, are to ensure using appropriate queue management techniques, including numbering and appointment systems, that no long queues emerge at any registration center. Where queues become unavoidable, the officials should strictly adhere to the maintenance of the 2-meter social distance advised by healthcare professionals.
The GMA was the first to quickly call out the NIA, warning of massive spread of COVID-19.
If we are not lucky and people filter through the net and end up being positive finally, but have already spread the virus around, then the community, the NHIS staff themselves, and the entire nation will be at risk. And this is going to be very safe.
Ghana's case count now stands at 16. Shraj and some citizens are worried, and already a suit has been filed against the NIA.
If you tell the people don't go to church, don't bury your people because it will bring about crowds, we should send the same message concerning registration.
So in the nutshell, churches shut, mosques shut, pubs shut, nightclubs shut. But for the NIA,
what are your thoughts? What do you think is really up with the NIA? What do you think they should be doing what they're doing at this point, despite all of the calls? Or do you think there should be a higher authority urging them to stop? Send us your message on WhatsApp platform 0540109009. That's the number on your screen. Let's hear your thoughts. Right now, I want to take you to the Eastern region where the NIA's registration is ongoing. That's what police were told is holding a 35-year-old man who fired gunshot at an NIA registration center. But what really is in that story? Maxwell Kudeko is our correspondent in that region. He joins me on the line right now to give us the details. Maxwell, take us to the beginning. What happened?
To the Eastern Regional Police PRO, DSP, this gentleman, Stephen Tete, age 25, entered one of the registration centers called Obeyemi near Otepalu around Asasawa very early in the morning. The gentleman entered the polling center shouting and then ordering the officials to shut their machines off and then park off the registration center. While he was ordering them to park their machines out of the center, the gentleman, we are told, was firing gunshots in the air. So quickly, the officials ran away to the Otepalu police station, that is a nearby police station, filed a complaint, and the police patrol team rushed to the scene. When they got to the scene, truly they met the gentleman with a gun, continuing the mayhem, as it were, causing fear in the area. So the police quickly arrested him. They took over the gun and then 2 shells of, as it were, bullets at his custody. So he was taken to the Asasawa police station where police interrogated him. And today we're told that police will send him to the court and then ask the court to remand him for further investigation. So as we speak now, the gentleman, Stephen Tete, is in the Asasawa police station custody, pending further investigation.
So this appears to be an angry Ghanaian about the fact that the registration is ongoing. So he came to order the NIA officials to stop. But we know that the NIA officials are continuing with the exercise.
Exactly so. But we've done some rounds this morning at the various polling centers, and the exercise is going on unabated. At some centers, you will see two. Somehow, in other areas, you see one police officer where people, the place is perceived to be a very rowdy area. You see two officers at the Betomu police station at Betomu. I saw two community police officers at the center trying to ensure that calm is restored to the place. Earlier this morning, the crowd was overwhelming to the extent that the officials couldn't control the crowd as to ordering them to keep space or maintain space among themselves. So the police have to come in and then ensure that the registrants or people who have come to register adhere to, as it were, the protocols laid down for the registration center. Most of the centers are operating. Most of the centers are operating in church premises. So let me give you a mental picture of the arrangement. For example, at the Two Streams polling center, there's a big Pentecost church there. So the registration officials are stationed in the church premise, that is the church hall, and they have mounted two canopies outside the church hall. So the registrants are made to sit under the tent and then wait for their time. So the registration officer comes around to number them, give them number, and they call them according to the number. So within the church premises, the crowds are managed there, but outside the premises, the crowd is overwhelming. One tent, sometimes you can count about 50 or more people under one tent, or sometimes you can count less in some places. So this is also the arrangement in the church premises.
Okay.
For example, the Two Streams registration center, the church premise is very big. So I could count about 25 chairs with space, let's say about 3 meters or 2 meters space. So they call 25 people at a go inside. They give them seats, but you could see that there is wider space. So they call you, it's your turn. You start the process. They gather your data. You go to the processor before you get.
Well, Maxwell, these sort of gatherings are what the health experts warn against. It is a very dangerous place, they say, for anything as far as the spread of this virus is concerned to happen. It is a breeding ground for that to happen. Have you spoken to the people who are massing up there, and what do they think they're doing?
Sure, it is very interesting. There seems to be misreaction from people who have queued, as it were, to go and register. A couple of them are not too happy with the fact that the NIA have, as it were, disregarded the president's directive banning mass gathering. They believe that the NIA should call off the exercise. But others too are of the view that they have done the exercise in other regions. So the fear is that if they call off the exercise, the likelihood that they may not have the opportunity to register again is high. So most of them care less the consequences. One gentleman at the, how do we call it, Kasejan area there told me point blank that, Master, this one, if they go, I don't know when they will come again. So I don't believe in Corona. I will join the queue and then make sure that I get my card. So it has been mixed. Others don't believe. So those who are very cautious about the crowd, you will see them somehow far away from the crowd. So when they mention their number, they quickly rush to the room and then they join the other people in the room and then get their card.
Perhaps about time. So it takes the NIA really to assure these people that they will get the chance to register again if they don't do it right now in this time of a pandemic. Maxwell, thank you for that update. Maxwell Kudako is our Eastern Regional Correspondent, bringing us up to speed. He says people are massing up at the NIA registration centers. Some of them say this is our chance because other regions have already registered. If we don't do it now, we don't know when we can do it. It takes the NIA to give the people that sort of assurance. Some of you have been sending your messages saying, I'll take those messages. But let's cross over to Parliament now. The majority and minority MPs on the Constitution and Legal Affairs Committee have brokered some sort of deal to limit the powers of the president as captured in the draft Restriction of Imposition Bill 2020. A meeting of the committee today agreed that Parliament and other institutions would have to be consulted before the President imposes restrictions, a provision which was not captured in the previous draft bill. Also, penalties to flouting impositions will now be defined by Parliament in the bill instead of allowing the President to make that determination. Committee Chairman Ben Abdallah tells Joy News the proposed amendment will be sent to plenary today and they hope to pass it before sitting adjourned.
Yes, so otherwise, we all agree that that ought not to be the case because that will be sinning against Article 19, 10 or 11 of the Constitution. We all agreed before we even went to the floor to start the debate. So what we've done or what we are proposing is that the sanction regime ought to be captured in the bill itself, but not through an EI. So that has been done. So I think that at section clause 2.2 of the bill, as it stands, to a large extent, is the genesis of the whole controversy. But we've been able to effect some considerable and amendment as to capture the sense of the both house of the house. I mean the both sides of the house.
So would it be accurate to say that the new document will place some limitations on the President's powers when it comes to the imposition of some of these restrictions in terms of...
Yes, to some extent. That is what we are saying, that when it comes to the duration within which the restrictions should last, we've stated 3 months. If the exigencies require that it should be extended, we have also stated so in the Act. But that is not without prejudice to the right of anybody who thinks that...
Apologies for that sound there. That's Ben Abdallah, well, Member of Parliament for Kachi South, who's also member of the committee. Ben Ahiafo says the bill will now have the support of minority MPs. If you recall, yesterday they were up in arms against it. He says changes to the draft document are substantial.
Under the law, but the law itself has an amendment introduced which has prescribed the offense and then the penalty that goes with the offense, and the minimum will be 100 penalty unit and the maximum will be 500 penalty unit. So Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs have done a lot of amendment to the bill, and I'm looking forward to see the members of Parliament also carrying on a lot of amendment to the bill.
So if I get
it, sure that the bill is actually taking care of the situation. So, but my personal worry is that I tried looking at the coronavirus bill of the United Kingdom. It's very elaborate. It's about 360 something pages document. But Ghana, we need to take our time and also come out with a very elaborate law which will be general in nature. The UK is peculiar to coronavirus, but it is very elaborate. But for me, what we are doing is scanty, which may not cover all aspects of the emergency situations, disaster situations, or situations of similar nature.
So, but from the deliberations this morning, now the bill in the format per the amendments that are being made will now have the support of the minority in Parliament.
Yes, the bill will now have the support of the minority in Parliament.
That's because the new bill...
A lot of inputs at the committee consideration.
So the concerns that it gave too much power to the President, the real work bill...
We have imposed limitations on the powers of the President such that the President is not going to act alone. He will act in accordance with the advice from a relevant institution, and the relevant institution would be discussed. The President does no longer even have power to impose penalty by executive instrument. The penalty is also being prescribed by the law. And then anytime the President is going to impose restriction in an emergency, disaster or similar circumstances, there must be a justifiable reason in accordance with the spirit of the Constitution.
And for you, that takes care of the concerns about the powers in the original bill being too broad.
Yes.
Hence, it would have the support of the minority.
In the original bill, the powers were unaffected, as and when the president decides. Then he will impose the restrictions. But we study it up such that he will not have such an absolute power. He will have to act in accordance with the Constitution as well as the provisions of the bill when passed into law.
Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins me from Parliament. Joseph, one of the key things right now, and I have tons of messages here from our viewers, every single message here is asking the NIA to stop. Has Parliament, representatives of the people, said anything about the NIA registration that is still ongoing, massing people up in these, what the Minister of Health calls dangerous times?
Did come up on the floor. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, the MP for North Tongue, made the point in the course of discussions on what they call the business agenda, which is what the House will be doing next week, and asking that in the light of the President's directive, he's expecting a situation where the National Identification Authority should have been directed by government to pull brakes on what is happening. And he indicated that one of the things he's looking forward to doing next week will be to get the Minister for monitoring and evaluation summoned. That's Dr. Akuto Usuefriye, who happens to be the Member of Parliament for the Tafo Pankrono constituency. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, says he's filing an urgent question to get the minister summoned to come respond to questions on how come the NIA is not being asked to pull brakes on the process. And he makes the point that Mr. Ablakwa has heard within the media the NIA Chief Executive, Professor Kenatefwa, making the point that he actually is working based on directives from above. And so he sees it that Professor Kenatefwa is actually operating under a higher power than himself in his decision to continue the registration process. So Mr. Ablakwa says he would ensure that the minister gets someone to Parliament to come respond to questions. The interesting bit is that even after he raised that particular issue and gave that hint, when the majority leader, Oseichi Mensah-Bonsu, responded to the issues, the majority leader did not comment specifically on the substance of the issues, except to say that it's not part of the discussions as was captured in the business statement, which is the agenda for next week. So he virtually didn't respond to the concern and the request that Mr. Ablakwa made, but we're waiting to see when that question gets filed and how soon the Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Akuto Usuefriye, Dr. Akutosei, will be summoned to Parliament to come respond to questions on that.
Finally, Joseph, the number has risen to 16. The number of the cases risen to 16. I believe the Parliament has heard of it. What has the reaction been?
Gift, if you can say that again, it's a little difficult here.
I'm saying that the number of the cases, coronavirus cases here in Ghana, has now risen to 16. I believe the Parliament has heard it. What has been the reactions from both the minority and the majority sides in Parliament?
They're hoping that, particularly for the majority side, when the necessary legislation gets passed, it may help to a certain extent in helping contain the situation. The focus of the House for several hours now has actually been specifically on that legislation and not exactly a conversation on how the numbers are going or anything like that. On the floor itself, it's really not come up for a conversation. Mainly on the floor have been concerns about how Parliament continuing to sit in the light of the issues about them being more than 25 people and several numbers gathering. Earlier in the day, there was the distribution of masks among members of Parliament. So the Speaker himself, Professor Michael Quay, as well as the members of Parliament, as and when they are getting into the chamber, we would have the situation of the masks being handed over to them. And that generated some conversation on the floor. And members of Parliament asking questions about whether themselves they know how to make use of the mask and how that can help ensure the necessary protection. That has been the main conversation right on the floor of Parliament. And one proposal that's come from the majority leader is that the House continues sitting even going into tomorrow, which is a Saturday, although it's not a working day, so that then they can approve other bills having to do with other aspects of the management of the state. But in terms of the issues with the rising numbers are not matters that have yet come up for a conversation on the floor itself.
Talking about the legislation, I said finally, but let's make this the final one. Talking about the legislation, we just heard from the people you spoke to that it looks like they've reached a certain consensus. Are we looking at a very an immediate passage of that law?
So that's exactly the case, that from what we're actually saying, we're looking forward to what is most likely going to be a very long evening, because the indication is that the House is currently on break. They've suspended sitting for some time now. They were expected to come back at 3. The expectation is that when they come back, the Committee on Constitutional and Legal Affairs will be presenting its report and also specific recommendations on amendments that need to be made to the legislation that was brought to the House. And from what the members of Parliament on both the majority and the minority side are telling us, an agreement has been reached to both limit the powers of the President, as was contained in the original bill, and as well ensure a situation where if the President has to declare a situation of restrictions, he needs to do the necessary consultations, and if people flout the legislation and they need to be punished, the President will not be the one to determine the punishment. So from the understanding we get in, those agreements have been reached, and when they come to the floor, they will move ahead with the amendments with both the support of the majority and the minority MPs. And going into the evening, they're hoping to get that particular legislation passed before the close of day today. Joseph, thank you. And will be a great job you've done for us in Parliament over the period. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be getting to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, if not here on this show, in our subsequent bulletin to find out how it all ends up in Parliament. But we'll tell you the situation of what's happening in our shopping malls, what's happening elsewhere globally as far as the COVID-19 spread is concerned. We'll tell you what's happening in court, and then we'll tell you what happened today at the Jubilee House. I'm going to take a very quick break. I'll be right back. To stay with us. Welcome back to the show. I'll tell you what people are saying about coronavirus. Some of you have been sending in your messages. Let me take some of those messages. This one says, Sweetin says, I'm calling from Kumasi. I watched a video saying a new medicine can heal COVID-19. I learned it has been tested and proved in Ghana. That has not happened, Mr. Collins. That has not happened at all. There is a vaccine being tested in the United States, but it's at the very, very fundamental levels. So nothing of that sort has happened. This one says, what is wrong with this NIA people? You don't add your name or anything. This one says, WASI has not started. The certificates are needed for admission in August, September, but the WASI has been suspended. But NIA is acting with impunity. The government of Ghana is complicit in what NIA is doing. It's from Foga in Aflao. Foga, thanks for sending in that message. This one says, government has to order the NIA to stop the registration and respect human rights. This is Dunga from Nima right here. Dunga, thank you for sending in your messages. This one says, not only the NIA, I think authorities should stop public transport and our markets for now to avoid community spread. It is getting scary. Amwa, Philippine Techiman, 2 more. And then I go to my next story. It says, good afternoon. My name is Isaac Ado Adams from the Eastern region. NIA should be sued to appear before court. Well, that has already happened, but they're still adamant. It says, why are they the only institution? You're asking if they're the only institution in Ghana. They should give us a break. What actually do the government want from this registration exercise? Daniel Odonko. This one says, this is very disgusting. The NIA boss is having the backing of the president. That's why. If not, then who born dog? From AB in Accra. I'm going to take you to the court now. Chief Justice Kwesi Anini-Yeboah has directed judges and magistrates to grant long adjournment. This is the contribution of the judiciary to ensure that courtrooms are largely empty to contain the fast-spreading COVID-19
Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the following report in which he captures new directives from the CJ and what the Ghana Bar Association has been asking members to do.
The Chief Justice says judges and magistrates should ensure that cases involving parties should only be heard with lawyers present and their witnesses allowed as well. They are also to ensure that in other cases only lawyers and parties are allowed in court. Only parties in a case with their lawyers may enter the courtroom when the specific case is called. Judges and magistrates should be flexible in granting adjournments during this period. Judges and magistrates should grant long adjournments in matters which do not require immediate resolution. Registrars are to bear these directives in mind in fixing dates in order to decongest the courts. The Chief Justice says he is confident these additional measures will go a long way in decongesting the courts and consequently preventing the spread of COVID-19. The Ghana Bar Association has also issued a statement on the matter. The statement announces a 4-point guideline to be followed by members. In view of the fact that there are presently cases that have already been scheduled before courts, lawyers may communicate with their colleagues in a matter if they are desirous of adjournments. Where a matter is pending in the court, even if part heard, counsel may agree on a date and inform the registrar of the relevant court accordingly by correspondence. Lawyers may opt to take long adjournments within the term. All cases pending before the court must be adjourned to specific times on specific dates, and lawyers must endeavor to appear only at a scheduled time. Lawyers are to dispense with the presence of their clients and their acquaintances when applications are listed for hearing and in cases that are not part heard. It concludes that the National Executive of the GBA wishes to entreat all its members to abide by the above guidelines to ensure that the courts are decongested to safeguard the health and safety of members of the bar, bench, staff of the judicial service, litigants, and the general public.
Joseph Akable with that report. The medical director of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Strofenyo, says it appears there is shortage of surgical masks and gloves on the local market. Speaking after receiving some non-medicine consumables used to fight coronavirus from the Universal Hospitals Group and NS Chemist, he also stated that 4 COVID-19 patients at the hospital are in stable condition. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, here is Chief Executive Officer of the Universal Hospitals Group, Frederick Emisa, who is appealing to corporate institutions to come together to help fight this pandemic.
We have only one Ghana. This is all we got. With this global pandemic, you basically see everybody where they come from, and this is what we have. So I'll tell all industry, all corporate players, all individuals that whatever your widow's mite is, 1 cedi, 2 cedi, a prayer here, a prayer there, we're all in one ship and we're going to do this together. And I believe and trust in our medical team, the Ghana Health Service, the Ministry of Health. With the confidence that the president's addressed the nation, we know we're going to fight this pandemic and come out good. Critical for me is some masks, oxygen masks, some sanitizers and hand gloves to help the frontline staff of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital do their work diligently and with the knowledge that they are safe and there's a community support from companies like we do. It falls into our values as a company to support the communities that we work in.
And we certainly support all our medical staff and those at the front lines. They're doing a great job, but they can use all of the help in the world. Well, let's hear from the medical director of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Strofenyo, talking about shortage of the items they need on the local market.
And only talk for those patients who are under our care at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. But as far as the patients who are within the Greater Accra Regional Hospital are concerned, I can say that they are all doing very well and they are recovering, and we hope that in no distant future we will be discharging them home. And as we look through the list, these are exactly the items that we needed in large quantities. We are so grateful. And as we all know, fighting an epidemic like this is something that is very expensive, and the hospital alone cannot do it, and government alone can also not do it. So we really need support of other organizations, and it is in this light that we really appreciate the gesture of what the gesture that Universal Hospital Group has just done. To be able to succeed, we need everybody's support. Some of the items are very difficult to get, even in the market. items like face masks, surgical face masks, which we normally use in theaters, and also those special masks that we call N95. These have become very difficult to get in the market. It looks like there is shortage in the local market. So we are using this medium to appeal to the general public that whoever is touched, who is in a position to help supply, get some of these items into Ghana and support us with some of these items, we are ready and willing to receive.
Dr. Shrofenyo, the Human Resource Manager of Ernest Chemists, one of the companies that also added to the donation, Solomon Ohinifosu, says it's important for Ghanaians to extend help to Ghana's health service at this time.
The situation now, as it's in Ghana, requires that corporate bodies who can support should take stead and then also come and then support. Ernest Chemists is doing this as part of our social responsibility. And now that we are in the industry that this issue has happened, it requires us to do just that. And that is what we've done. Yeah. So we presented nose masks, sanitizers, and the necessary, let's say, products that we need in this time of the COVID-19. Yes.
So as the death toll from this coronavirus scourge rises to over 9,800, two Ghanaian residents in the United States and the United Kingdom have been speaking about life out there. In the U.S., where over 14,000 cases have been recorded with 205 deaths, there has been a raft of measures, including shutdown of courts over the pandemic. U.S.-based Ghanaian lawyer Sylvia Quay spoke to Israeli on JoyNews Prime.
It's very dire. The schools have all closed. The kids are in the house getting homeschooled. They are doing online classes. Store shelves are empty of essentials. There's no toilet paper. There isn't sanitizer on the shelves. There isn't soap. All these things that are supposed to help us address the coronavirus pandemic are in heavy shortage here. Of course, there's no social activity. Nobody's visiting anybody. We're all holding in our homes. So for those of us who are extroverts, this is very hard because you don't see anybody outside of your own family and you don't get to be in a community with other people. It is it's a tough time we're all living.
I know you have your own practice. How are you coping? Are you able to consult? Are you able to see your clients?
Well, one of the joys of having my own practice is I get to determine how I do my work. Fortunately or unfortunately, all the courts are closed. So there's no litigation going on right now. As far as seeing my clients, I'm able to either FaceTime or do a telephonic consultation with them. I'm in the office by myself, so I'm not exposed to any risk per se. If a client has to come in and sign something, it would just be them. They don't come with an entourage or family members to expose us to, any more threats. So that individual will come in, sign the paper, sanitize his hands, and I sanitize mine, and then they go back.
Are you particularly concerned about how the virus is impacting Africa, and especially Ghana, where you have relatives?
Absolutely. I check on my family every day. I have family all over the world. And so I make sure I touch base with everybody to make sure that everyone is safe. And secondly, to go through the regimen with everybody. Wash your hands, stay away from large crowds of people, sanitize, repeat. Frankly, this is how we're going at it because it's a scary time we're living in right now. And we can't but watch and pray. Do what we can, follow the protocol, clean our hands, services, sanitize, and then self-quarantine or stay at home and not be near people. I particularly have an aging mother who is in the vulnerable group. So I text her every day, call her, and I tell her, stay away from funerals and engagements or weddings. These are the things that our elderly family members do to keep them interested and to keep them, going, to entertain themselves. But I've told her to stay away from all and just stay home. She doesn't even need to go to the market to buy anything. If she needs to walk, she can walk around the house and go back in. So in my own small way, this is all I'm doing to make sure that my family is protected.
So from the United States, in the United Kingdom, over 2,000 cases have been recorded with 38 deaths, I must say. Louisa Osborne is a Ghanaian resident in London.
A lot of uncertainty in London at the moment. Our Prime Minister Boris Johnson today announced that all the schools are going to be shut, from tomorrow. And with the GCSE and A-levels exams pending, we're really not sure what's going to be happening. And also, I've been today sent home, to start working from home. And we're not sure when we're returning. And there's also a partial shutdown on the underground system, the tube network. 40 stations have been closed, and there's, minimal movement around. I particularly went to the supermarket this morning, and I was told that I was entitled to 2 items each, per packaging. And for me, that was, a real awakening. And also, we've been told that 20,000 soldiers have been put on standby to help, with the situation. And so, I mean, these are really trying times. What I can also add is that people are trying, social distancing. The pubs and the restaurants are all empty. And that's what is happening here, really. It's really, trying times for us, but we're trying to, contain the situation. And for people of us of faith, we're really, clenching on at the moment. For church services are going to be online. And that's the situation at hand at the moment. So,
all right. Are you particularly concerned about how the virus is impacting Africa, especially Ghana, where you have relatives? Now, Louisa, are you also worried about your folks back home?
Well, on Sunday evening, I think I heard the president's remarks and views on what was going to be happening, and I was particularly encouraged because he had, put a ban on, large gatherings, funerals, churches, and all these places that we seem to, socialize. And he'd also, sent the schools home and so forth and so on. And so for me, in hearing that, it was really encouraging. It made me feel that, that we're taking steps to, curb the situation. And also with the airport situation. At the moment, this is what we're hearing. We're not sure that if you're not a Ghanaian citizen and you make attempts to come to Ghana, they will not allow you to come in. That's what we're hearing, but we're not sure if that's the accurate information. And so yes, and then this morning I also saw on Facebook that they were praying, about the situation, in Jubilee House. That was also very encouraging. So yes, I feel a sense of encouragement with what is happening. They've taken initiative, they've made steps, to try and curb the situation the best way they can. So for that, for me, it's quite encouraging.
Louisa Osborne is a Ghanaian resident in London. Back home in Ghana, traders say importers have started hoarding goods in anticipation of what they say is looming shortage in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Some of the business owners whose work depend largely on imports from hard-hit countries like China and America say the trend has led to spikes in prices, and things could be worse in the coming weeks as many warehouses run out of stock. We'll bring you the voices of some of the traders who do business with importers and some supermarkets as well as malls. But we'll bring you the global overview, what is happening in the world, across the world as far as coronavirus is concerned. Well, again, we start with China. but China is having very good news recently. So let's move on quickly and take a look at Ghana. What most of you have been sending messages, and in those messages you're asking whether we can confirm the reported cases of 8 recoveries. Well, let's see if the Johns Hopkins University has received any such information because they do live updates of the cases. This is Johns Hopkins University live update of the situation. Total confirmed 16, so obviously it's been updated in the last few hours. 16 so far, no deaths, no recoveries there. So according to the Johns Hopkins University, there has not been any recoveries in Ghana as yet. We know that some websites have reported that there's been some recoveries, but we can't confirm that as far as this data is concerned. We also can't confirm that from the website of the Ghana's Ministry of Health. All right, so let's take a look at, I noticed something interesting. Jamaica seems to be in the same league with Ghana, except that they have recorded 1 death. Now, there are also some misconceptions out there, people sending us messages asking whether or not Jamaica has any cases. Well, we do know that Jamaica has 16 confirmed cases, just like Ghana. What we know, by the way, is that they have recorded 1 death and 2 people have recovered, all in Jamaica. Let's take a look at the hard-hit countries, the hardest hit countries. Let's start with Italy. Certainly Italy on that list is following China. China is, of course, where it started, and so their figures are really up. Italy, the count has gone up to 41,035. 3,405 people have died, but 4,440 people have recovered. That's Italy. If you have friends for them in Italy, you want to hook up with them, try to find out how they're doing. And then let's go to Spain. I'll show you something interesting in Italy as well if we get the video. Now, in Italy, they do a lot to support the health personnel, those on the front line. So most people, I mean, the country is in lockdown, but people will come to their balconies and they'll sing praises to the health professionals who are helping in these very hard times. So we'll bring you that video before we call it a wrap here. But let's take a look at Spain. Spain has 19,980. And of course, if you're a football lover, you know that Spain is one of the biggest places to look at when you're talking soccer or world sports. Well, 19,980 cases, 1,000+ people are dead, 1,588 have recovered. But of course, all sporting activities in this area have been suspended. How is Iran doing? Iran is one of the countries we haven't really mentioned lately. Iran is one of the countries hardest hit as well. They have sanctions, and so they've rather been in a difficult position. 19,644. 1,433 people have died so far, but they've made some very good recoveries there. 6,745 people. The U.S., United States of America, where we are also hearing that California has been in curfew as we speak. We'll bring you that video as well. We'll try and find that video for you. But the United States of America is an escalating situation because they have 14,250 confirmed cases as of now. 205 are dead. 121 have recovered. Again, more people have died than the number of people that have been recovered. But we also know that in the United States, they're exploring ways to develop a vaccine for this coronavirus. We know that some people have already been tested. Some volunteers have already been tested with that vaccine, and they're waiting to find out what the results of that testing will be. Let's end with Germany and France, and then perhaps the United Kingdom. Let's take a look at Germany. In Germany, they're also having a very escalating situation. 18,361 recorded cases. 52 people have died. But of course, a number of people have recovered as well. 180 of them, which sounds good. United States, we've done already. Let's go to France and take a look at what's happening in France. We know that a lot of people, fly into this country from France. They're looking at 10,891 cases there. 371 people have died in France. 12 have recovered. Very few as compared to the number of people who have died. Let's end it with the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has 3,297, and I select these countries because we know that, I mean, majority, you can find a lot of Ghanaians in some of these countries. So 3,297, 145 people have died, 67 are recovering or have recovered. And so this gives you an idea, the global overview of COVID-19. And so we'll keep updating you. We'll keep updating you as and when we have that data. But if you have friends or you have family anywhere here, keep praying for them. As we here in Ghana also take care of ourselves to make sure that we don't encourage the spread of this disease. Well, let's hear from some of the traders who do business with importers, some supermarkets and malls who are also said to be rationing toiletries and sanitary equipment at the East Legon branch of Melcombe. A notice on the sanitary shelf reads, only 3 pieces per invoice rationed in public interest. Some staff of the retail outlet told JoyNews it's a directive from the head office. This patron spoke to Matilda Gavi.
It's a usual thing we do, but I mean, because of the virus, we want to take extra measures and then stock up for any shortage here.
But I noticed something interesting on the shelf. I don't know whether you noticed that. So what did you see?
I thought 3 per customer. Yeah, it's not bad though. I mean, if everybody should have access to the toiletries, if everybody should pick everything to their home, others wouldn't have it, which is not fair. So I think 3 per customer is okay.
Okay, so is this your regular you buy or
usually
you
we
just
buy one?
Okay.
Yeah, we buy one for a week, but then we decided to go extra. Yeah.
Okay. All right, sure. Anything you'd want to share with regards to this coronavirus and all that? Does it make you scared as a family? Do you have children or something? Does it make you worried or something?
Yeah, we have children. We actually have 4 children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just be safe out there. Try to wash your hand as much as you can. Use hand sanitizer as much as you can. Yeah, and then you'll be fine. It's scary, but not as scary as everybody makes it look like. Yeah.
Well, that's Matilda Gavi speaking to a patron at Melcombe last night. This morning, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said the threat of COVID-19 pandemic is real and has encouraged imams and mosques to use social media as a tool to broadcast sermons to their congregants as a precautionary measure of preventing the spread of COVID-19. Reciting and interpreting portions of the Quran at the breakfast prayer meeting at the Jubilee House today, Dr. Bawumia called on the Muslim community in Ghana and beyond to respect local and international protocols to keep safe from the lethal virus.
The existential threat of the coronavirus pandemic is bringing the best out of nations across the world. In Ghana, apart from the few strides that have been made at the medical front to tackle the menace, the country has also turned to the Creator, the Almighty God, for intervention. Today, the Muslim community, led by the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and the National Chief Imam, gathered here with some Muslim clerics to pray for God's intervention.
Throughout the world, and recently on the African continent, there continue to be a daily upsurge in the number of confirmed cases. As more and more people get tested, we find more and more cases. One of the most striking government directives was the suspension of religious activities in churches and mosques. For us as Muslims, our daily congregational prayers and weekly Jummah prayers would have to be put on hold. During this temporary period of not being able to converge at mosques for the prayers and also listen to the weekly Friday khutbah, I would like to suggest an innovative way of delivering weekly sermons through social media to homes in the country by imams and mosques which have the capacity to do so. The decision to suspend services in churches and mosques was drastic, but a necessary measure to safeguard our health so that we can get back stronger and worship our Lord, inshallah. As you already know, eminent imams, this decision and the advice to restrict movements under the difficult situation we find ourselves in, are well grounded in Islamic principles. Even before the advent of science, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is quoted to have said in the hadith that, and I quote, "If you hear of an outbreak of a plague in a land, do not enter it." That's what the Prophet said. If you hear of the outbreak of a plague in a land, do not enter it. But if the plague breaks out in a place while you are in it, do not leave that place. End quote. This profound statement, made many centuries ago by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is what our scientists and health professionals have advised us to do now in the midst of the outbreak of this global pandemic.
Spokesperson of the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Armiyaw Shaibu, used the biblical Jonah story to charge the Muslim community in Ghana to turn to God and pray for him to intercede and save Ghana from the COVID-19 pandemic.
The whole of the world has virtually come under siege. And under the circumstance, nations that pride themselves with the most advanced and excellent scientific and technological advancements have virtually been brought to their knees. We can relate our present circumstance in Ghana, across Africa, in the world, that circumstance that happened to a prophet has also happened to us. And when he made an open declaration of God's power and relied on him, God absolved and saved him. And that is Yunus alayhi salam. When he has turned away from duty, was a nun izzahabu mughadiban, when he turned away from duty and he thought that Allah will not do anything about him, he was made to fall into the sea where he was swallowed by a whale. Now he realized the power of Allah, and so therefore being disobedient at one time, similarly, virtually, he made an open declaration, فَنَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ, and therefore he openly called unto Allah in the darkness of the sea, the darkness of the night, and the darkness of the rainy night. And la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min az-zalimin. There is no deity worthy of obeisance and worship by man except you alone, and indeed I am among those who have wronged themselves. Meaning that I come to you as a humble servant, wanting you. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. So therefore we responded to his call. We responded to his call. وَأَيُّوبَ, so is Job also. He called unto his Lord, my Lord, I have been afflicted. I am afflicted with sickness, to the point that I'm unable to worship you as I desire. And in similar way, and we took away from him the affliction, and we brought to him what he has lost of his family and the like. And so do we bring our compassion as an experience to those who are devoted to us. That's what Allah said in the Holy Quran.
ويا أسرع الحاسبين اللهم أنت أمرتنا بدعائك ووعدتنا بإجابتك.
So that's what happened at the Jubilee House earlier this morning. Vice President leading the Muslim prayer against COVID-19. Head of our health desk, Fred Smith, has joined me back in the studio. I'm going to read some of your messages, but we'll talk about the countries and the actions that have been taken. The latest being California that has had to go into a lockdown. Let me bring you some of the messages. Fred, it's good to have you back. What information can we share with our audience as far as the situation in California is concerned?
Well, we told you earlier about California that's been on a lockdown. Yes, indeed, more details coming up. They are in a lockdown, 40 million population. That's more than Ghana. Ghana has an estimated 30 million.
Yeah, thereabout.
Everybody must stay indoors. Nobody's supposed to move about. Part of measures to contain the situation, the governor who has been given the orders says that it's important to enforce this to ensure that they're able to control the spreading cases in California itself.
Right. So we'll show you some. Like, here are some of the videos that are going round. This is from Sky News. Sky News is talking about what's happening in California. Now it says California placed in lockdown. Italy's fatalities surpass China. So those are the very latest. Trump cancels G7 summit. And NZ bans non-resident, that's New Zealand, bans non-resident arrivals. EU stockpiles medical gear. Fred, I want us to talk about these things. Now, you've mentioned California and what is happening in California. Now, if you want to have a mental picture of the situation, it's like picture Ghana and a bit more lockdown. So that's like 30 million. So
it's about Ghana and maybe Togo.
Okay, so Ghana, that's a bit bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, but so roughly, just to give you an idea, it is the number of people, 40 million, all put on lockdown. And so it means we're here and you can't move anywhere unless you're going to offer essential services. If you're not offering any of those essential services, you're not supposed to go out. Now, there have actually been concerns. People actually think that the United States, the places that people expect a lot more of these things to happen, but not all the states agree for that to happen. And so that's what's happening in California. We'll bring you up to date on what's happening in the other countries. Now, the next one you saw on our list was Italy. And what's happening in Italy, and I said that I'll show you a video of how the people assemble. I almost called you Evans, Fred. How the people are assemble. I mean, it's a glimmer of hope. How people assemble on their balconies and they sing to each other. And those videos, we can find some of that and we share that with you. How is it that Italy surpassed, the situation, if you like, according in terms of the number of people who have died?
That's what happens.
In China.
That's what happens if you are not able to trace those who've been able to contract the disease and those they've come into contact with. And so it's important that the contact tracing goes on. It's important that the contact tracing takes place, and everybody who we suspect may have come into contact, we are able to track all of these people. Okay,
let's take a look at the United Kingdom. Yesterday we heard from Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that they will get through this. What is the latest situation in the UK? Well, whilst we get that answer, let me read for you some of the comments that we're getting here. This one is coming from Biposo. Says, taking us back to the NIA, which is a very important issue. Says, if the NIA will not listen to any advice, they should go ahead till things get out of hands. From, say, Ike in Biposo. Gifty, is there any other country that has not been affected? From Isaac Biposo. Isaac, that's a very good question. I'm going to check on the list on Johns Hopkins University and give you that update. But it looks pretty much like a lot more. Almost every country has been affected. I have not seen any reports from Madagascar, by the way, which is a part of Africa. I have not seen any report from, say, Namibia. I've not heard or seen any report from Botswana, but we certainly will be looking out for that. We should look at which countries, but this seems to have affected a greater chunk of the world. And so this message says, you send a video and you say this is a must-watch video. Well, I'm unable to watch a video at the moment, and so I will bring you that. Well, I'll take a look at that later on. This one is also talking about the NIA. It says the NIA should stop the Ghana card registration. They should leave the man who was arrested because he did the right thing. Enoch. Enoch is sending that from Kintampo. All right. So, Fred, I mentioned that Italy has a nice way of doing things, in these very hard times. They assemble.
Well, I'm sure that these are photos of Italy showing empty streets.
Yeah. Fair.
Okay, showing empty streets, and well, these are patients being taken care of in Italy. So the situation with Italy is that the contact tracing was not spot on, and therefore they got a lot of spike in the cases.
Right. Well, at least the people are doing something very encouraging. They assemble on their balconies, they sing to the health workers who are at the front lines, and they sing a lot of praises to them. Let's take a look at the UK, Fred. What can we...
Well, the United Kingdom, we know schools were shut down today. Other measures are also in place. And in the United Kingdom, similar measures as we have here, some flights have also been banned. You can see the Prime Minister there, Boris Johnson, announcing those measures which took effect from today. And so also stricter measures in the United Kingdom to try and halt the spread of coronavirus there.
And talking about Italy, I'm just getting a message from someone in Italy. He says, Gifty, I'd like to ask in fact, what the people in the queue to register for NIA, what is wrong with them? Ghanaians are joking. Here in Italy, everyone is indoors, so we have to be very careful.
That's actually the concern of the Ghanaian students. You recall at a point during the peak of the Chinese crisis, they were asking that we bring them home. They stopped saying that.
Well, I think that the point that people made was that this country has a better health system that could take care of you in case of any eventuality. Now, here we are. We had the Minister of Health today say that these are dangerous times. He's saying we're anticipating 1,000 people have come into contact with these 16 confirmed cases.
Indeed, and God forbid, it shouldn't be any one of those in the Eastern region trying to get a Ghana card. If that happens, we are doomed.
We certainly are doomed. And Fred, I have about 200 messages here. Each of them is talking about the NIA. People don't seem very excited about this. Right now, I just got this from Mutala in Nalerugu in the northern region. He says, northeast region, says, good afternoon. The NIA exercise is controllable. So why can't they stop it for now? Or are they telling us they are not part of the gatherings that the president claimed? God save us. We'll be doing sports shortly. But Fred, what more can we know? Can we talk about Spain?
Well, Spain has also seen a spike in their cases, and they are also facing serious challenges. I think 15,000. Look at Spain now. The streets are empty. Usually, you have lots of people on these streets, and look.
And in this story, it actually tells you what is happening.
Exactly.
There are either people who are leaving the country or people who are providing essential services. And that's a case of Spain. What do we know about Philippines?
Well, Philippines, they've developed some innovation in trying to check the overcrowding or social distancing in their commercial transport operators. So there are some cardboards they've used to partition parts of the vehicle. But in getting in, look, there's overcrowding.
It's a scramble for the bus. But that's another dangerous situation. Because then if a single person has it,
then everybody around may get it.
Well, let's still see some of the messages you're sending through before we get through to do some sports. It says, please, I have a potent herbal medicine for the COVID-19
He can go to, don't lie.
He says, kindly let Noguchi contact me for trials.
He can go to Noguchi, it's at the University of Ghana. He can also go to the Ministry of Health. They will take care of him. The Ministry of Health.
But I actually think this person is joking, Fred, because the details he adds, he's talking about leaves, apple, green to green, etc. So I think the person is just making fun. But, you know, guys, we can make fun of this, and I think Ghanaians like to do that a lot, but we really need to take care of ourselves.
This time, it is a very serious matter.
All right, so it says they should quarantine them for another 14 days in case they recover fully to be sure enough. I don't know who you're referring to because you don't add any more details.
I'm sure they're referring to the news about 8 persons who were told have recovered, and that has not been confirmed officially. And if that has happened, then this call is legitimate to monitor them. And of course, that's what the health officials do. Even if they test you, they are suspicious, they test you, they still ask you to stay home for some time, and you will be observed and see if nothing happens, and then you can go out and mingle with people. So yeah, that's in order.
Well, Fred, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be able to do this more and get also experts to answer some of your questions that you may have. This one says, and my final message says, is there a secret that in the NIA registration? May God help us. It's coming from Vicky in Kumasi. Fred, do you have any final words before we go on to do sports?
Well, it's one thing I'll say anytime. Wash your hands with soap and the running water. It's becoming a song, right? Wash your hands with soap and the running water. We use a hand sanitizer, which is alcohol-based, have about 70% volume in it. Keep a distance from the next person and make sure that you're not in a crowded area. All of these things are tips given by the health professionals. If we all follow, we will be fine.
And we will be fine. And it is dangerous times indeed, but the good thing is you can recover. People have recovered from this, but also it is a scary virus. Let's do some sports right after this.
Thank you for staying with us here on The Pulse. I'm Gary Al Smith with the sport. Today, we'll be exploring what it means for people who normally, at this time, when things are quite normal, getting ready for a busy weekend of sporting action, not because they play, but because they bet. Sports punters are feeling the pinch of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in this report, George Addo Jr. explores and visits some of the people and companies for whom COVID means losses and maybe a change in strategy.
Charlie, on a normal day in a betting hall like this, the boys are here doing their betting. I mean, massive stuff. Talk about the English Premier League, the Italian Serie A, the German Bundesliga. They're here finding out, sorting out the odds, and we'll be hoping to make some money. Everything has changed with coronavirus, and truly, when I got into this hall, how empty this place was just indicated what's happening here. We're just here to find out from the betting guys what the problem is, what's up, how are they making money, how are they surviving.
Betting halls across the country record full attendances on peak match days, with bettors having so much to choose from. With the schedule of major football leagues opening up to the non-traditional game days, some die-hard betting fans could stay in betting halls from morning till evening. And on each day, Monday nights and Friday night fixtures, midweek fixtures, and the peak weekend sports glut. The story is the exact opposite. Packed chairs, empty betting halls, and fans now having to dig deep to earn their money. Major markets including the European football and American sports have been suspended by authorities, leaving punters short of markets to bet on. There's a devastating impact on the bookies, as suites of sporting events have been cancelled due to the pandemic.
Like, people know they come out, come play games like that like before. As at last week, things are quite different. But this week, things are outdoor, like people are not playing due to there's no league matches and so on like that.
So how you manage? You got to horse racing, what they do now, how you manage?
Also, we guys, we just do. We are still hoping for the best shot.
While betting companies admit there is relatively slow activity on their portals and in their halls, fans are divided over what the true picture is at the moment. For some, no sports, no betting, no cash.
You know, we don't have that. We can't stake the online betting, such as the English Premier League, the La Liga, the French. They've postponed all of them. So now you're only taking the virtual games.
So it affects the pocket, eh?
Yes, please.
What's the complaint?
What's the complaint? What's the complaint? Come on,
because I can't say nobody there.
Like nobody.
Like how those days.
Yeah,
like
normal days that the place.
Matches there. Like
the place will be full in numbers. Yeah.
You see all the chairs there,
nobody empty.
Yeah. Okay, so right now, what you guys do? Explain this one to me.
And this one is a virtual football.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is like 3 minutes, 5 minutes game. Okay. It's just a virtual. Okay. So it's they play with time. And it's time, then the game will start.
Okay.
Then after the 3 minutes, then you get a winner who win. When you stick well, you win well.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one is the virtual football, and this one is a roulette, and they have the keno, and this one is the soccer 6.
Okay.
So they have virtual games here.
Okay, so explain to me the virtual game one. Like, so we then you can play Chelsea versus Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So you go beat me.
Yeah.
So we go put the money for top. If we do, I'm going to get.
No, it's with them. It's a program they've done, which you have to stake. Okay. Yeah, it's a program. They've done a program there. Okay. So you select the teams that you want to stake. Okay. Yeah. So when you win, they pay you. That one is 3 minutes, instant after the game. No.
Well, as in every trade, I suppose, they are smarter guys. And though the betting world has been hit with tornado coronavirus, their ships are stable. And perhaps are the reason for a rise in bets for Russian, Turkish and Brazilian football, as well as increases in bingo and Irish lotto.
The betting is still they make more money. As the Turkish league, the Australian league, they more money. Where nobody see the games they suspend them like matches no day, matches to sake of live matches day where I give them at the stake bingy, so I give bingy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So which of the leagues right you they follow? As you say some leagues they still be open. So which of the leagues you do I the bet for back?
Me, I'm not sure that they spy them such. I go one is better, I go and take my bets. I go them alive matches. Then get bunch games for them, then get matches we only 8 minutes they play, 10 minutes they play, then play for like 20 minutes bet. Then I go live bet, I go take like 200, 500 CDs, and there's overs, yellow cards. Then maybe Australian, then my league, money, then at Nova, I go do some skirmishes, tear them at all.
So wait till this over.
We have a Barcelona fan.
So that times then the Spanish league then if you open then they add Barcelona for your betting side.
Oh, Barcelona, I never did stick for them at all. Even though they my team there. Not like.
Why you know they stick for them at all?
So there's some joy at least, but the situation could get worse for bettors, as the betting halls may refuse entry if the coronavirus cases in the country escalate. For now, squeezing water out of stone remains the order.
Well, until the games are back, there'll be nothing to bet on. I'm sure for the meantime, there'll be all the betting guys will be looking out for the virtual games and nothing else. But they know the real cash is when all the major leagues are back.
So, who's your money on? If you're a betting person, let's know how you are faring in these coronic times. I'm Gary Al-Smith with the Sport. Gifty is here to finish up the news.
Coronic times indeed. You want to certainly take care of yourself. You want to do hand washing, observe social distance, as I'm doing with Gary right now. He's far away from me. And let's all stay safe. My name is Gifty Andropia. There is more news at myjoyonline.com if you do log on.